So we're here to just talk about one story in particular. A Nebraska bar owner who was indicted in the fatal shooting of a black protester has died by suicide. And of course, CNN's going to leave out a bunch of, context, so to speak. From what CNN says, a Nebraska bar owner who was indicted by a grand jury last week in the fatal shooting of a black protester has died by suicide, his attorney Stu Dornan announced during a news conference Sunday. The family of Jake Gardner has asked Tom Monahan and myself to share the news of his death today at his own hand, Dornan said. Gardner, 38, was found dead inside a medical clinic outside of Portland, Oregon, Sunday afternoon, the Hillsborough Police Department said in a news release. Gardner was indicted by a Douglas County, Nebraska grand jury Wednesday on charges of manslaughter, the use of a firearm in the commission of a felony, attempted first-degree assault, and terroristic threats. The charges stem from the May 30 shooting death of 22-year-old James Scurlock outside of Gardner's Omaha bar during protests related to the police killing of George Floyd, CNN previously reported. Well, not well, because you very much left out so much context to the matter. So what happened is the father of Jake Gardner got into a tussle with one of the protesters. There was some pushing, so Jake went out, tried to, break it up, tried to stop everything, tried to, tell them to chill out, stop, it's in front of his business. They were getting antsy with him. They started pressuring him, so he revealed that he had a gun on his waistband, telling them to stop, warning them repeatedly, until two guys jumped on his back and ended up throwing him to the ground. He ended up pulling the gun out when he was on the ground and doing two warning shots as the other two then fled. The two that jumped him fled. While he is getting up, James Scurlock is then seen getting on top of Jake Gardner's back and putting him into a chokehold in which Jake Gardner changes hands of the gun and shoots, I believe, around his left side, I believe it said, and hitting James Scurlock in the clavicle. That's what the video shows. I can't show the video, but I can at least explain what the video is. So that's what happened, and afterwards it was ruled as a self-defense, but pressure from the community, but mostly, Black Lives Matter activists and Antifa were pressuring them to indict farther. So it was going to go to a grand jury. And it could have been ruled as a self-defense, even by the grand jury, we don't know, but he was also being pressured by the community, he was getting texts saying death threats and messages on Facebook and all over the place, and he lost his bar. The landowner that he was renting from for the bar just said get out, so he was gone. It's so unfortunate for him that it was literally by the edict of this mob rule that it ended up having to go further. It put him under more stress. He ended up kind of not really fleeing, but he moved. He had to get out of where he was about 20 miles away, and then was found dead. It's incredibly unfortunate, and we can't allow this mob rule to happen, because this almost ends up being the end result. Maybe he could have gotten off on self-defense when it went to a grand jury, or morality police would have taken over and he would have been sent to jail. Then he wouldn't have fared well in jail. It's very unfortunate that he couldn't take the stress anymore, and we actually don't even know the full details. He could have just not taken the stress anymore and eventually just gave in and took his own life. There's rumors and speculation that the suicide is actually a murder, but we won't rule that out until there's actual evidence. This could just be a case of way too much pressure, way too much public pressure, and it's just feeling like the government is out to get you. This guy was a Marine veteran, served in Iraq, and he believed he defended his country, and he believed he defended his his business and himself, his family, and this is what happens when you let the morality police and mob rule justify the justice system, because there was no trial. There's no trial for any of this on whether anyone's guilty or innocent. It's literally mob rule, judge, jury, and executioner. This is probably one of the worst cases of it. This is definitely the worst case of it happening, of it under this mob rule. And it's only going to get worse from here on out. And believe me, this story just gets even sicker as it goes on, because we've also got Nebraska Senator Megan Hunt admits Jake Gardner persecution was mob rule and continues to smear him after his suicide. This lady is garbage. Utter garbage. From the Gateway Pundit, from Cassandra Fairbanks at the Gateway Pundit. Trashy far-left extremist Senator Megan Hunt is practically dancing on the grave of a Trump volunteer and Marine who killed himself over the weekend after being charged for defending himself, his father, and his bar from a criminal rioter in a fatal incident. The Nebraska senator, who describes herself as Buy Queen, Abolish ICE, Equality Before the Law 2K20, she, her, hers in her Twitter profile, continued to smear Jake Gardner as a white supremacist on social media after his death. She also admitted that charges in his case were entirely due to the political mob. That's awful, and the DOJ needs to come in right now and start investigating this woman, because this is terrible. She said on Twitter, the indictment of Jake Gardner would never have happened without the community, the people who stood up for justice and demanded action from city officials. Jake Gardner is gone, but the white supremacist attitudes that emboldened him are still with us today. She called him a white supremacist. She emboldened other people to call him a white supremacist just for being a Trump supporter. This woman is just sick. And she's a senator. These Democratic senators are just awful. I can't take them anymore. This is just terrible. Omaha World Herald had come out with the story first. Here, we'll bring up the story. Got Jake Gardner shook up by indictment in James Scurlock's death, kills himself. The surreal and sordid ordeal involving a white Omaha barner and young black Omaha man ended Sunday with a staggering development. Okay. Jake Gardner awaiting... I was just making sure on the time date for some reason. Jake Gardner awaiting arrest after a grand jury in Omaha indicted him last week. Shot himself outside a medical clinic in suburban Portland, Oregon. 2 law enforcement officials told the World Herald. Police in Hillsboro, Oregon found the 38-year-old former Marine dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound around 12:20 p.m. Gardner's attorneys, Stu Dornan and Tom Monahan, said Gardner shot himself on the day he had said he would surrender in connection with manslaughter and 3 other felony charges stemming from the May 30 confrontation that led to the death of 22-year-old James Scurlock. I guarantee you Jake Gardner didn't want to kill this guy. He probably felt awful. According to family members and friends, that he was distraught over ended up killing somebody. He was in disarray. It's no wonder that he eventually did, especially if it feels like everybody is just out to get you. Now both men are dead by the same hand. Sunday, Dornan and Monahan blamed Gardner's apparent suicide on a cocktail of behavioral health problems stemming from head trauma he experienced during military service. The belief that people were out to kill him, and an incessant rush to judgment by social media jockeys. Especially when we know that the senator was completely out to get him, and it was a political mob that did it. DOJ needs to come in right now, investigate this woman, and bring her in for some sort of justice, because she is bringing more violence into her own community, into her own state. Nebraska, you should be ashamed of this woman. That's all I have to say. Ashamed. We'll continue reading here. In the first public comments since the May 30 shooting, the Omaha attorneys, both former prosecutors, revealed that their client had suffered 2 traumatic brain injuries while serving 2 tours in Iraq, injuries that netted him Social Security disability payments. They said the Barner, who had posted on Facebook the weekend of May 30th that he was going downtown to pull a military-style fire watch, felt like he was in a warlike environment during the chaos that engulfed downtown Omaha that night. Yeah, it's a possibility. PTSD is a real serious issue. And yeah, most veterans have it. It's a terrible, terrible issue that they need help with. And they don't. Not to the way that they should. Monahan alleged that after Gardner shot and killed Scurlock, people sent Gardner death threats on social media and by text to Gardner's personal cell phone, though Monahan later acknowledged that he didn't think the threats were credible enough to report to law enforcement. Well, maybe they were. Dornan said Douglas County Attorney Don Klein, who defeated Dornan in 2006 to become county attorney, and made the right call in ruling Gardner's actions justified. Gardner had claimed that Scurlock had him in a chokehold and wouldn't let go. Despite Gardner's repeated pleas to get off me, at the end of the 18-second struggle, Gardner switched the gun to his left hand and fired over his shoulder, killing Scurlock. Yet, Jake Gardner never stopped saying, get off me, stop. He didn't want any of this. Grand jurors, under the guidance of special prosecutor, ruled out self-defense as a justification. Bottom line, Dornan and Monahan said Gardner had lost his bars. A landlord ended his lease after the shooting, his home, his livelihood, and he was about to lose his freedom. Add in behavioral health concerns, Dornan said, and suicide was not a surprise. Even though his attorneys fully expected him to turn himself in Sunday night, Monahan said Gardner did not leave a suicide note. I mean, his gun was missing. His dad said, he usually stays in his room all the time, but it was missing. It was with him. And this is what happened. It's a shame. They literally just let the mob rule judge, jury, and executioner. This man, who is completely innocent, justified in his self-defense. I feel sorry for you, Jake. I truly do. To your family as well. Because you have people like Senator Megan Hunt here who will disgrace you and put you down for her own political gain. And that is disgraceful. Utter disgrace. I don't know how much more I can actually say on this without getting, even more emotional, and just keep saying how disgraceful she is. So we're gonna end it here. This is one of the first commentary videos, one of the first opinion videos we're having for this channel. We're gonna start doing them once a day now. Hopefully tomorrow's isn't as sad. Boy, I hope. Doesn't look like it, but we'll see. I'll see you tomorrow with the opinion piece. See you.